There's something inside all of us that wants to defend ourselves when we feel attacked. It's natural. It's human. When someone disrespects you, everything in you wants to clap back, to set the record straight, to prove that you're not the one to mess with. But let me ask you something. What's the cost? What do you gain by proving yourself to people who were never going to respect you in the first place? Not every battle is yours to fight. Some battles are distractions in disguise. Some battles are designed to pull you away from your purpose, to waste your energy, to get you so caught up in proving a point that you lose sight of the bigger picture. And if the enemy can't destroy you, he will distract you. He'll send little irritations, petty conflicts, unnecessary drama, just to pull you off course. Think about this. When David faced Goliath, he had a decision to make. He could have stopped and argued with every person who doubted him. He could have fought his own brothers who didn't believe in him. He could have wasted time defending himself against King Saul's skepticism, but he didn't. He stayed focused on the real battle. He didn't let himself get pulled into side fights with people who weren't even his real enemy. He knew that not every battle was worth his time. And yet, some of us are out here trying to fight every Goliath, every critic, every insult, every social media comment. You don't have time for that. You have a destiny to fulfill, and destiny requires discernment. Just because someone calls you out doesn't mean you have to step into the ring. Just because someone throws an insult doesn't mean you have to catch it. Just because someone disrespects you doesn't mean you have to dignify it with a response. You see, some battles win themselves when you refuse to engage. Have you ever noticed that? That when you choose silence, when you choose to walk away, when you choose to stay focused, some of the people who tried to bring you down end up destroying themselves because their weapons were never meant to prosper. But if you step into a battle that isn't yours, you become the one holding the weapon against yourself. The moment you understand this, you start operating differently. You don't waste words on people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't lower yourself to the level of someone who thrives on negativity. You stop reacting and you start discerning. Is this battle actually mine? Or is this a setup to pull me off course? Because here's the truth. Some battles are already won, but you lose them when you engage. Some battles were meant for God to handle, but you keep stepping in and taking matters into your own hands. Some battles are beneath you, but the moment you start swinging, you're fighting on their level instead of standing on yours. When you know who you are, you don't have to prove it to anyone. When you know where you're going, you don't let small-minded people pull you into meaningless fights. When you know what's ahead of you, you stop wasting time looking back at what's behind you. Not every battle is yours to fight. How you respond in moments of disrespect, opposition, and misunderstanding is directly connected to how high you can go in life. Your response determines your elevation. It determines whether you stay stuck in cycles of offense and frustration, or whether you rise above and step into something greater. We live in a world where everyone feels entitled to react. Someone disrespects you, and you feel like you have to let them know who they're dealing with. Someone offends you, and you feel the need to correct them, clap back, or make them regret ever crossing you. But here's the problem. You can't rise while you're still reaching down to fight battles beneath you. You can't move forward while you're tangled up in arguments that don't even matter in the long run. Look at Joseph in the Bible. His brothers betrayed him, sold him into slavery, and left him for dead. If anyone had a right to be bitter, it was Joseph. If anyone had a right to retaliate, it was Joseph. But when the moment came when he stood face to face with the very people who wronged him, his response wasn't revenge. It was wisdom. It was elevation. Because he understood something. If he let bitterness rule his response, he would stay stuck in the same pit where his brothers threw him. If he allowed offense to consume him, he would never have made it to the palace. You see, your response is a test every single time. How you handle disrespect is not about the person who disrespected you. It's about you. It's about whether you can be trusted with greater. It's about whether you can be mature enough to walk away when everything in you wants to react. It's about whether you can control your spirit instead of letting your emotions control you. Because let's be real, some of us have blocked our own blessings because we reacted too quickly. We let one moment of offense push us into a battle we weren't supposed to fight. We let one rude comment throw us into a cycle of bitterness. We let one act of disrespect pull us into unnecessary drama, and before we knew it, we were stuck in a place we were never meant to stay. But elevation requires restraint. Elevation requires self-restraint. Elevation requires the ability to discern when to speak and when to stay silent, when to engage and when to walk away. Because the higher you go, the less you can afford to waste energy on things that don't matter. Imagine a pilot trying to take off, but every time someone yells from the ground, he stops the plane, climbs out of the cockpit, and argues with them. He'll never get off the ground. And some of us have been grounded for far too long because we keep coming down to fight battles that don't deserve our attention. The truth is, not everyone deserves your response. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every fight is worth your time. And the moment you realize this, you start elevating automatically. Because when you stop responding to negativity, you take away its power. When you stop trying to prove yourself to people who are never going to respect you anyway, you free yourself to grow. When you stop letting offense dictate your actions, you position yourself for something greater. So ask yourself, what battles are keeping you from elevation? What arguments have kept you grounded? What offense has stolen your focus? Because at the end of the day, your response is either going to lift you higher or lock you in place. There's a kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself, a kind of strength that doesn't need to be proven, a kind of authority that doesn't have to be explained. That power is found in silence. See, we live in a culture where everyone feels the need to have the last word. We think that if we don't respond, people will assume we're weak. If we don't correct them, they'll think they got away with it. If we don't defend ourselves, they'll believe what was said about us. But real power doesn't come from reacting. Real power comes from restraint. Think about Jesus. When he was falsely accused, when he was mocked, when he was disrespected, he didn't argue back. He didn't waste time proving himself to people who were determined to misunderstand him. He didn't lower himself to their level. And yet, he was the most powerful one in the room. He knew who he was, so he didn't need to explain it to anybody. He knew his purpose, so he didn't waste time debating with people who weren't a part of it. His silence wasn't weakness, it was confidence. Some of us are missing out on elevation because we talk too much. We explain too much. We react too much. We let the words of others dictate our next move, and before we know it, we're tangled up in battles that never even deserved our energy in the first place. Because here's the thing, when you argue with a fool, from a distance, no one can tell who the fool is. Silence is a response. Silence says, I'm too focused on my future to be bothered by your opinions. Silence says, I refuse to let your words control my emotions. Silence says, I trust God to handle this better than I ever could. You see, people expect you to react. They expect you to lose your cool. They expect you to come down to their level. And when you don't, you confuse them. You frustrate them. You take away their power. That's why silence is louder than words. It's the response that speaks for itself. Look at lions. A lion doesn't waste energy barking back at every dog that barks at it. A lion doesn't feel the need to prove it's a lion, it knows its power. And some of us need to stop trying to prove who we are to people who were never going to respect us in the first place. Some of us need to stop explaining ourselves to those who are committed to misunderstanding us. Some of us need to recognize that every time we react, we are giving someone else control over our emotions, our energy, and our focus. Because the truth is, the people who are talking about you, they're going to keep talking whether you respond or not. The ones who doubt you, they're going to keep doubting whether you explain yourself or not. So why waste your time? Why waste your peace? Why waste your energy on people who aren't invested in your growth? Let your success do the talking. Let your character do the talking. Let your consistency do the talking. Because nothing confuses the enemy more than a person who refuses to be distracted. Nothing frustrates your haters more than a person who keeps winning despite their words. And nothing shuts down negativity faster than silence. There are some battles in life that you were never meant to fight. Some burdens you were never meant to carry. Some situations you were never meant to fix. But the problem is, we like control. We like to handle things ourselves. We like to make sure people understand us, respect us, acknowledge us. And when we feel disrespected or mistreated, our first instinct is to take matters into our own hands. But here's the truth. You are exhausting yourself trying to do what only God can do. You are losing sleep over things that are out of your control. You are carrying offenses that are too heavy for you. And the more you try to handle it, the worse it gets. Because some situations are not your assignment, they're God's. Look at Moses. When the Israelites were trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea, the people panicked. They thought it was over. And Moses, being their leader, probably felt the pressure to fix it, to strategize, to figure out a way forward. But God didn't tell Moses to fight. He didn't tell Moses to explain. He didn't tell Moses to stress. He simply said, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." And that's where so many of us struggle, being still. Because stillness feels like weakness. Stillness feels like we're letting people walk all over us. Stillness feels like we're doing nothing. But stillness is not inaction, it's trust. Stillness is saying, "God, I don't have to defend myself, because you are my defender." Stillness is saying, "I don't have to fight for my reputation because you are my vindicator." Stillness is saying, "I don't have to take revenge because you see everything, and you will handle it better than I ever could." Some of us have wasted years trying to prove ourselves to people who never had the ability to see us correctly in the first place. Some of us have drained our energy fighting battles that were beneath us. Some of us have lost our peace because we have been holding on to offenses that we were supposed to release. And all the while, God is saying, if you would just let go, I would step in. If you would stop trying to control it, I would take care of it. If you would stop reacting, I would start restoring. But here's the hard part. Letting God handle it means we don't get to dictate how or when He does it. It means we don't get to see every detail of the plan. It means we don't always get immediate closure, and we don't always get an explanation. It means trusting that He sees what we don't. He knows what we don't. He is working in ways we can't even imagine, and that's where faith comes in. Because faith is believing that even when it looks like nothing is happening, God is still moving. Faith is believing that even when it feels unfair, God is still just. Faith is believing that even when you feel overlooked, God has not forgotten you. Faith is believing that God can handle what you can't. So why are you still carrying it? Why are you still replaying the conversation in your head? Why are you still trying to convince people who will never change their minds? Why are you still trying to control something that is beyond your ability to fix? When you release it to God, you are not giving up, you are stepping up. You are choosing to trust that God's plan is greater than your emotions. You are choosing to believe that His justice, is better than your revenge. You are choosing to rest, knowing that He fights for you even when you don't see it. Because the moment you let go, that's the moment He steps in. Every single day you wake up with a limited amount of energy, a limited amount of focus, a limited amount of emotional capacity. And how you choose to spend that energy determines everything. It determines whether you move forward or stay stuck, whether you grow or stay the same, whether you walk in purpose or waste another day on things that don't even matter in the long run. But too many of us are spending our energy on things that are draining us instead of developing us. We are pouring ourselves into proving points, fighting unnecessary battles, reacting to negativity, entertaining distractions, and getting caught up in emotions that only keep us stuck. We are investing our energy into arguments that will never lead to resolution, trying to win over people who were never going to respect us in the first place, and holding on to offenses that are doing nothing but weighing us down. And then we wonder why we're so tired, so frustrated, so emotionally drained. It's not always because life is hard. It's because we are wasting energy on things that don't deserve it. Your energy is too valuable to be given away to things that don't build you. Too valuable to be spent on bitterness, on offense, on reacting to every little thing that rubs you the wrong way. Too valuable to be poured into people who only take from you but never pour back into you. Look at how Jesus lived. He didn't waste his energy proving himself to the Pharisees. He didn't waste his time arguing with people who had already made up their minds about him. He didn't waste his emotions being bitter about who rejected him. He stayed focused on his assignment. He knew that his energy was too valuable to be scattered in 1,000 different directions. And if Jesus, who had unlimited power, was selective with his energy, how much more do we need to be? Because every time you give energy to something unworthy of it, you are taking energy away from something that actually matters. Every time you let a petty comment steal your focus, you are taking focus away from what God has called you to do. Every time you let someone's disrespect pull you into a fight, you are lowering yourself to their level instead of staying in the position God has placed you in. You have to start protecting your energy like it's a valuable resource. Because it is. You wouldn't throw your money away on things that have no return, so why do we throw our energy away so easily? Why do we give our peace to people who have no respect for it? Why do we allow negativity to take up space in our minds when it's not paying rent? Some of us are walking around spiritually bankrupt because we have been investing our energy in the wrong things. We are too tired for the things that matter because we wasted our strength on things that didn't. But what would happen if we started being intentional with our energy? What would happen if we stopped reacting to everything that annoyed us, offended us, or tried to pull us off course? What would happen if we started saying, I'm not wasting another ounce of energy on proving myself to people who don't matter. I'm not losing my peace over opinions that won't even affect my future. I'm not spending my emotional capacity on people who don't value me. Because here's the truth, you can't afford to give your energy away for free anymore. You have too much ahead of you. You have too much purpose inside of you. You have too much to accomplish to be exhausted by things that don't even align with where you're going. So ask yourself, where is my energy going? Am I pouring it into things that build me or things that drain me? Am I using it to grow or to stay stuck? Am I investing in my future or wasting it on things that won't even matter a year from now? Because at the end of the day, your energy is a seed, and where you plant it determines what kind of harvest you will have. At the end of the day, your energy, your focus, your peace, these are not things to be wasted. You don't have time to fight battles that aren't yours. You don't have time to defend yourself to people who will never see your worth. You don't have time to carry offenses that only weigh you down. Your destiny is too great. Your calling is too important. Your future is too valuable. So be intentional with your energy. Be selective with your battles. Be wise with your responses. Because elevation requires discipline, and sometimes the greatest power is found in restraint. Sometimes the loudest response is silence. And sometimes the strongest move is letting God handle what you can't. Walk in confidence. Walk in purpose. Walk in the understanding that not everything deserves your attention. Protect your energy. Focus on what truly matters, and trust that when you let go of what drains you, you make room for what grows you.